Okay, I want you to close your eyes for a second. We're going to do a little time travel.
All right, I'm with you.
I want you to picture the year 2005.
A very specific, very loud year in pop culture.
Extremely loud.
Yeah.
We're talking about oversized white T-shirts that go down to your knees.
Yeah.
We're talking about spinning rims, spree wells on everything from Escalades to Honda Civics.
Everything. The Sidekick 2 is the peak of technology.
It's the absolute coolest thing you can own. And if you turn on the radio, what are you hearing? You're hearing 50 Cent, you're hearing the beginnings of ringtone rap, and you're hearing a whole lot of the Dirty South.
Oh, yeah. It was a real transition point. I mean, the dominance of that whole 90s era was kind of fading, and the industry was scrambling, to find the next big regional sound.
Exactly. And right in the middle of this chaos, on September 27, 2005, a West Coast legend drops his 7th solo studio album. The artist is Mack 10.
And the album is Hustla's Handbook.
Now, looking back from today, it's easy to overlook this project. It didn't sell 1 million copies first week. It wasn't the Chronic.
No, not at all. It debuted at, number 65 on the Billboard 200. I think it hit number 13 on the R&B hip-hop charts.
Which are modest numbers.
For a guy who was used to platinum plaques with West Side Connection, yeah, very modest.
Right. But here is why we are talking about it today. We aren't here to count record sales. We are here to look at the personnel.
Ah, yes.
Because when I opened up the liner notes for this album, which, by the way, was released on Who-Bangin' and Capitol Records, I realized this wasn't just a rap album. It was a Rolodex.
That is the perfect word for it. It's a convergence point. You have the established West Coast royalty trying to maintain their territory. You have the rising tide of the St. Louis hip-hop scene making its presence known.
A huge presence.
You've got East Coast grit, and you have these session musicians and producers who would, go on to win Grammys a decade later.
It's basically a time capsule of the entire industry in 2005. So the mission today is simple but intense. We're going to dissect Hustla's Handbook, track by track, person by person.
I love this.
We're going to look at the biographies of every single artist involved, from the legends to the background singers, and figure out how they all ended up in the same studio.
And specifically, we need to look at why Mack 10, a guy known for being Inglewood to the bone, decided to curate this specific mixture of talent. It's a fascinating study in networking.
It really is.
Yeah.
So let's unpack this. We have to start with the man himself, the architect, Mack 10.
Dedrick DeMond Rollison.
Dedrick DeMond Rollison. Now, usually, when people think Mack 10, they think of the Chicken Hawk. They think of West Side Connection standing next to Ice Cube and WC.
The mid-90s, that classic era.
Exactly. But who is Mack 10 in 2005?
That is the critical context. In 2005, Mack 10 is in a very interesting middle ground. He's a veteran. This is his 7th solo album.
7th. That's a long career already.
A very long career. He had just come off Ghetto, Gutter, and Gangsta in 2003, which is a very independent, raw, sort of street-level project. But Hustla's Handbook feels different. It feels like he's trying to polish the image.
It feels more musical.
Precisely. And that's intentional. You have to remember, Mack 10 isn't just a rapper, he's an executive. He runs Who-Bangin' Records.
Right.
He's thinking about business. He understands market trends.
Yeah.
In 2005, the whole gangsta image was starting to soften slightly into this hustler image, more about the money, the cars, the lifestyle, rather than just the violence. And you hear that shift in the production choices.
Okay, so you mentioned the musicality. I think the best place to see that is on track 8, so Gangsta. Because when I pressed play on that, I didn't hear a synthesized plastic beat. I heard soul.
You heard history.
Right.
So Gangsta is built around a sample of Man's Temptation. Now, the song was originally written by Curtis Mayfield.
A legend.
One of the greatest songwriters in American history, but the version sampled here is performed by Isaac Hayes.
Isaac Hayes, Black Moses himself.
Exactly. So think about the layers there. You have Mack 10, a West Coast gangster rapper from Inglewood, rapping over Isaac Hayes singing Curtis Mayfield. That anchors the album in a lineage of black music that goes back to the 60s and 70s. It tells the listener, I might be a rapper from the street, but I have taste. I respect the architects of soul.
It elevates the material, it stops it from just being disposable ringtone music.
It gives it weight.
But Mack 10 knows he can't carry the whole melodic side by himself. He needs voices. And this is where we get into the legends, the West Coast royalty.
You can't discuss this album without discussing the feature on the lead single, track 1, like this.
The hook, the voice.
Nate Dogg.
I feel like we take Nate Dogg for granted sometimes. But in 2005, if you had Nate Dogg on your hook, that was it. Game over.
It was a wrap.
You got a hit.
It was the ultimate seal of validity. Let's really look at Nathaniel Dwayne Hale for a second. Born in 1969 in Clarksdale, Mississippi.
Mississippi. See, I always think of him as pure Long Beach.
He was born in Mississippi, son of a pastor, and that is crucial. He grew up singing in the Lifeline Baptist Church choir.
Ah, so that's where it comes from.
That's where he learned harmony. That's where he learned projection. He didn't move to Long Beach until he was a teenager. So when you hear that deep, resonant baritone on Like This, you are hearing the intersection of the Mississippi Delta Church and the Long Beach streets.
And his career arc up to 2005 is just staggering. I mean, he debuts on The Chronic in '92.
The very beginning.
He dominates the G-Funk era with Warren G on Regulate. By 2005, he had already released his own solo albums like G-Funk Classics and Music and Me. He was an institution.
He really was. And tragically, we lost him in 2011. So listening to Hustla's Handbook now, it serves as a memorial to that specific vocal texture that simply, it doesn't exist anymore.
No one sounds like that.
Nobody could do what Nate did. He could make a threat sound like a lullaby.
Like, this was the single. And it actually got some traction, right? It was in that movie Waist Deep.
Yes, the 2006 film Waist Deep starring Tyrese Gibson and Meagan Good. And we're going to come back to that movie a few times because Hustla's Handbook basically serves as the unofficial soundtrack for that film.
That makes sense.
Like, this captures that mid-2000s West Coast bounce perfectly. It's polished enough for the radio, but Nate Dogg keeps it grounded in the culture.
Okay, so you have the king of hooks, the absolute undeniable king, but Mack 10 also brought in another heavy hitter, someone who represents a totally different side of Los Angeles. Track 7, Step Yo Game Up.
Be Real.
The frontman of Cypress Hill.
Louis Mario Freeze, born right in Los Angeles in 1970.
Now, Be Real brings a completely different energy than Mack 10. It's almost shocking when his verse comes in.
It's the contrast that makes it work. You have Mack 10, who has this heavy, authoritative, almost sluggish behind-the-beat flow.
Yeah, he lays back in the pocket.
And then you have Be Real, the serial rhyme killer, the Dr. Green Thumb. His delivery is high-pitched, it's nasal, it's piercing.
He cuts through the mix like a knife.
Exactly. Be Real's background is fascinating, too. He's of Mexican and Cuban heritage. He started out as a b-boy and a graffiti artist before Cypress Hill just blew up in the early 90s.
Blew up is an understatement.
Right. By 2005, Cypress Hill had already dropped massive albums like Black Sunday and Skull and Bones. They were global superstars who bridged the gap between hip-hop and rock, and just as importantly, between Black and Latino audiences in L.A.
So having Be Real on Hustla's Handbook isn't just a feature. It's a statement of unity. It's Mack 10 saying, the West Coast is big, and we are all together on this.
It's a coalition. And practically speaking, Be Real's flow adds a spike of energy to the album. It wakes you up. Step Yo Game Up is an aggressive track, and Be Real sells that aggression in a way that feels frantic and urgent compared to Mack 10's cool, collected demeanor.
So we have the heavyweights, Nate Dogg and Be Real, legends. But one thing I noticed about this album is the sheer amount of singing. Not just hooks, but background vocals, harmonies, layers. It's incredibly lush.
That is a trademark of the producer Fredwreck, who we will definitely get to, but it also speaks to the vocalists Mack 10 hired. We need to talk about the man on track 8, so Gangsta in track 12, Cognac and Doja.
Butch Cassidy.
Butch Cassidy.
Now, if you aren't a West Coast superfan, you might not know the name, but you definitely know the sound.
You know the voice. Danny Elliott means the second. He is a Long Beach legend. And here is the aha moment for the connection enthusiasts out there.
Lay it on me.
Butch Cassidy is Nate Dogg's first cousin.
Wait, really? I did not know that.
Yes. They are blood relatives.
That explains everything. The tone, the style, it all makes sense now.
It does. They share that same DNA, that same vocal tone. Butch Cassidy came up in the exact same ecosystem. He was part of the group LBC Crew. He worked extensively with Snoop Dogg, Tyus Cdaz, DJ Quick, all the pillars.
He has that pimp crooner style. It's smooth, but it's definitely not I Love You R&B. It's street tales, but sung with perfect melody.
That's a great way to put it. On Cognac and Doja, he provides that smooth, laid-back vibe that makes the song feel like you're driving down Pacific Coast Highway at sunset. It's a very specific West Coast mood that Butch Cassidy specialized in.
He's essential.
He never quite became a solo superstar like Nate, but his contribution to the texture of the genre is massive.
But Mack 10 didn't just stop at the famous cousins. He went deep into the Rolodex for backing vocalists. And I want to give these people their flowers, because usually they just get listed in the fine print.
Absolutely. The vocal texture of this album relies heavily on Tracy Nelson.
Who is Tracy Nelson?
She's a powerhouse vocalist who was a go-to hook singer for gangsta rap albums in the early 2000s. She's all over this project. Track 5, Don't Hate Me. Track 7, Step Yo Game Up. And track 15, Livin' Just a Ball.
Wow, 3 tracks. She's doing a lot of the heavy lifting.
A ton. She brings that soulful female counterpoint to the male aggression. It adds a whole other dimension.
And she was part of the wider entertainment circle, too, wasn't she? I think I saw something about a movie role.
Yeah, she actually had a role in the movie Friday After Next in 2002. She played a choir member.
The Ice Cube movie.
Right. So again, you see how tight-knit this community is. Mack 10, Ice Cube, the movie industry, the music studios. It's all the same pool of talent. They're all calling each other for jobs.
We also have some other names here. Isaac Reese doing backing vocals on Cognac and Doja. And on Livin' Just a Ball, we have LaShawn Dendy and Nikisha Greer.
LaShawn Dendy is interesting. She was a member of the group Times 3. And Nikisha Greer, or Nikki Greer as she's also known, is a very talented songwriter and singer in her own right.
So these aren't just random people.
No, these are professionals. The fact that Mack 10 listed them, credited them, and utilized them shows he was trying to build a wall of sound. He didn't just want a beat and a rhyme. He wanted a full musical composition.
Okay, so we've established the West Coast foundation. We have the legends, the cousins, the vocalists. It's solid. But here's where the plot twists. If this was just a West Coast tribute album, that would be one thing.
But it's not.
It's 2005. And in 2005, the center of gravity in hip-hop had shifted.
It had moved to the Midwest, specifically St. Louis.
We were talking about the Nelly effect, the St. Lunatics, country grammar. And Mack 10, being the businessman he is, clearly saw this wave coming.
He didn't just see it, he surfed it. We have to talk about track 16, the bonus track, Right Out. It features Chingy.
Chingy, right there, Holiday Inn. He was everywhere.
Howard Earl Bailey Jr., born in St. Louis in 1980. In 2005, Chingy was arguably one of the most famous rappers on the planet. His album Jackpot had gone triple platinum.
So explain the strategy here. Why does Mack 10, an OG from Inglewood, put Chingy on his album?
It's a play for radio. It's a play for the youth. The West Coast G-Funk sound, let's be honest, was getting a little older. The kids were listening to that bounce, that jackpot sound from St. Louis.
There's the pop sound of the moment.
Exactly. By collaborating with Chingy, Mack 10 is signaling that he's still relevant, that he can hang with the new superstars. It's a commercial decision.
But does it work? Or does it sound forced? That's always the risk.
That's the debate. Some purists hated it. They thought it was Mack 10 chasing trends. But if you listen to Ride Out, the chemistry is actually decent. Mack 10 has always had a bounce to his flow, and Chingy, despite his pop appeal, was actually a capable rapper with a unique voice.
So it bridges the gap.
It bridges the gap between the LA lowrider culture and the STL parking lot pimping culture. It's a meeting of two different kinds of hustle.
And he didn't just grab the biggest star. He went deeper into the St. Louis scene. Look at track 9, I'm a Star. It features Bigga Brown and Ruka Puff.
Now, this is a deep dive. These are not household names globally, but they were key figures in that Missouri scene.
So tell me, who are they?
Bigga Brown, also known as Jay Brown, a staple of the St. Louis Underground. And Ruka Puff born Byron Waters. Ruka Puff was a character. High energy, big personality.
I read somewhere he changed his name later.
Yes, much later, around 2015, he reinvented himself as Zeus Rebel Waters, doing a mix of funk and rock, a whole different vibe.
Wow.
But in 2005, as Ruka Puff, he represented that gritty, high-energy Midwest flow that was distinct from the laid-back West Coast vibe. He brought that St. Louis energy.
So Mack 10 is really trying to create a United States of hustling here. He's got the West, he's got the Midwest. And then, just to complete the map, he goes east.
All the way to New York. Track 3, Pop, featuring Red Cafe.
A shakedown.
Jermaine Denny, a Brooklyn rapper, Guyanese descent. In the mid-2000s, Red Cafe was the king of the New York mixtape circuit.
He was on everything.
He was signed to Arista, then Def Jam, then Bad Boy. He was the guy everyone in New York knew was next. He had that buzz.
And he had that aggressive, punchline-heavy New York flow. It's so different.
It's completely different. So putting Red Cafe on a track with Mack 10 creates a fascinating friction. You hear the slang difference. You hear the cadence difference. Mack 10 is behind the beat swinging.
And Red Cafe?
Red Cafe is right on top of the beat, punching. It creates a dynamic energy that keeps the album from sounding monotonous. It's a great change of pace.
It's strategic diversity. But now, I want to pivot to my favorite part of this deep dive, the discoveries. The people who weren't legends yet, who Mack 10 gave a platform to.
The incubator aspect of the album, this is where it gets really interesting.
Yes. There's a name on this track list that jumped out at me. Track 13, By the Bar, featuring Canary Diamonds.
Canary Diamonds. Born Janyan Jimenez.
A female rapper from Watts, California.
And Watts creates a very specific type of artist. Gritty, tough, no nonsense. Canary Diamonds was marketed as the West Coast's answer to Foxy Brown or Lil' Kim.
She had that energy for sure.
But her backstory is interesting. She started as a dancer. She was in music videos. She was even in a girl group that was modeled after Destiny's Child, but it never took off.
So she was grinding in the background for a while.
She was. And Hustla's Handbook was her breakout moment. Mack 10 gave her a spotlight. He put her on a track and let her shine.
And she ran with it.
And if you track her career after this, she capitalized on it. She got on Chingy's album Hood Star the next year. And here's that movie connection again. She landed a role in Waist Deep.
It really feels like Mack 10 was casting for a movie as much as he was casting for an album. He was picking characters.
He was. And Canary Diamonds had the look, the attitude, and the flow to play the role of the first lady of this crew. She fit the part perfectly.
But the real MVP of the Rising Stars category has to be Young Soprano.
Oh, without a doubt.
I counted his name in the credits and I thought it was a typo. He is on 6 tracks.
Tracks 3, 4, 5, 6, 12, and 13. Plus he produced track 2.
Who is this guy? To be on half a Mack 10 album, he must have been his right-hand man.
Young Soprano. Real name Andrew Price II, also known as DVOC. In 2005, he was clearly Mack 10's protege. When you feature someone that heavily, you are telling the world, this is my guy, he is next.
That's a massive cosign. He's doing everything. He's rapping, he's producing.
He brings a younger, hungrier energy to the tracks. While Mack 10 is the established boss, the OG, Young Soprano is the soldier in the field. It creates a narrative balance on the album.
And we should acknowledge the other utility players here. We have Wanted, featured on multiple tracks. We have DL Larry Ogletree, who is rapping on Don't Hate Me, but also produced Dome Shot and the Chingy track Ride Out.
A multi-talent. And we can't forget the spiritual moment. Track 6, The Testimony, featuring Pastor Stephen Hamilton.
A pastor and a gangster rap album.
It's a staple of the genre. Think about the skits on Ice Cube albums or Tupac albums. Having a pastor deliver a sermon or a prayer adds a level of gravity.
It adds weight.
It acknowledges the sin and the struggle. It grounds the hustling in a moral framework, even if that framework is, let's say, contradictory.
Okay, we have covered the voices, the features, the singers, the rappers. But now we need to get technical. We need to get under the hood of the car. We need to talk about the sound.
Yes.
Because the production on Hustla's Handbook is deceptively complex.
This is where the deep dive really matters. If you just listen passively, you hear beats. But if you listen actively, you hear live instrumentation. And the architect of that sound is Fredwreck.
Fredwreck. Fareed Karam-Nassar. The pride of Flint, Michigan, who became a West Coast icon.
Fredwreck is not just a beat maker. He's a musician, a full-on musician. He plays keyboards, guitar, flute.
The flute on this album is crazy. I was not expecting that.
It is. Look at track 7, Step Yo Game Up. Fredwreck didn't just sample a flute, he played the flute. He played the keyboards. But then, to get the bass line right, he didn't use a synthesizer. He called in Eric Danger Coombs.
Wait, Eric Coombs, the bass player from the funk band Lettuce?
The very same. Eric Coombs is one of the best bass players in modern funk. Having him play live bass on a rap track gives it a warmth and a groove that a computer just cannot replicate.
It sounds alive.
It is alive. And Fredwreck didn't stop there. No, he brought in the Velvet Orchestra to provide strings. So think about this for a second. You have a track with Be Real and Mack 10 rapping, but underneath them you have live flute, live bass by a funk virtuoso, and a string section.
That is Quincy Jones-level ambition.
It is. Just applied to gangster rap, that is some serious musicianship.
It explains why the album has aged well sonically. Doesn't sound plastic or dated.
It sounds organic. And Fredwreck was the executive producer alongside Mack 10, so he really shaped the sonic landscape of the whole project. He was the co-pilot.
But he wasn't the only production team involved. And this next one blew my mind when I connected the dots. Track 3, Pop. Produced by 1500 or Nothing.
This is the moment where the history book should be rewritten. 1500 or Nothing is legendary now. We know them as the band for Jay-Z, for Usher.
Right. We know Lawrence Rance Dobson as a Grammy winner who worked on Boo'd Up for LMI.
But in 2005...
Who were they?
In 2005, they were just grinding. Lamar, My Guy Mars, Edwards, and Lawrence Dobson were young, hungry musicians from L.A. Mack 10 giving them a placement on this album was a huge early cosign.
He had his ear to the street.
A very good ear. And you can hear their style already. 1500 or Nothing is known for that church musician, chop incredible chord progressions, musicality, gospel influence. Even on a street track like Pop, the musicality is there.
It's another example of Mack 10's ear. He didn't just pick the hottest beat of the week, he picked the most talented musicians. He invested in talent.
It was a long-term investment that paid off, at least for them.
We also have the MIDI Mafia on the boards.
Bruce Wayne and Dirty Swift. A production duo, one American, one Canadian. They produced So Gangsta and Keep It Hood.
Yeah.
They were huge in the mid-2000s, producing for 50 Cent and others.
So they brought more of a mainstream sound.
They brought that hard-hitting, radio-ready sound that balanced out Fredwreck's live funk. It was a good mix.
And we can't forget Ron Nephew Feemster.
Nephew, a protege of Dr. Dre. He produced Don't Hate Me and The Testimony. Nephew is a keyboard wizard. He brings that smooth, liquid, R&B-infused chord structure.
So he handled the more soulful tracks.
When you hear the more emotional or melodic parts of the album, that's usually Nephew's touch.
And just to be thorough, because we promised the listeners we have to shout out the other producers in the liner notes.
Yes, we have to. MD Productions, that's Andre Taylor and Louis Hardin. They produced the lead single, Like This.
Which is amazing. The biggest song on the album was done by the lesser-known producers.
Sometimes that's how it happens. Then we have Lil Sin, Sherman Houston on I'm a Star. J Classic, Jeremy Cranen did My Chucks and By the Bar.
Okay. And young Trey, or Trayvon Green, he produced Cognac and Doja.
It's a village. It takes a village to raise a hustla, apparently.
It really does. It's a whole community on this one CD.
So we've looked at the architect, the legends, the Midwest expansion, the rising stars, and the sonic architects. Now I want to zoom out. When you hold Hustla's Handbook in your hands, or I guess look at it on Spotify, what does it represent in the grand scheme of hip-hop history?
That's the big question. I think it represents the last stand of a specific era of West Coast unity and the first step toward the modern era of collaboration.
How so? Explain that.
Well, look at the timeline. After 2005, the West Coast went into a bit of a recession commercially. We didn't get the next huge explosion until Kendrick Lamar and TDE in the early 2010s.
That's true. There was a quiet period.
A very quiet period. Hustla's Handbook is Mack 10 trying to keep the flame alive during those lean years by bringing in everyone he could find. From his city, from other cities, from other genres.
Okay, Bridge. It is. It connects the G-Funk of '94 with Nate Dogg to the ringtone rap of '05 with Chingy to the musical virtuosity of the future with 1500 or Nothing. It's a snapshot of a culture in flux.
And honestly, it's a masterclass in networking. Mack 10 proved that you don't have to be the best lyricist in the room if you are the best connector in the room.
That's a powerful lesson.
He built a platform where a legend like Isaac Hayes, through a sample, and a newcomer like Canary Diamonds could exist in the same ecosystem.
And where St. Louis and Los Angeles could trade verses? It's a business handbook as much as a hustler's handbook. It's about building coalitions.
So here's my challenge to you, the listener. Go back and stream Hustla's Handbook. But don't just listen to the rhymes. Listen to the flute on Step Yo Game Up. Listen to the live bass.
Listen to the backing vocals on Cognac and Doja.
Listen for the hunger in young soprano's voice. And ask yourself, how many of your favorite artists today are standing on the shoulders of the connections made on albums like this?
That is the real question. The family tree of hip-hop is vast, and this album is a major branch, a really important and often overlooked branch.
Thanks for taking this deep dive with us. We'll catch you on the next one.